Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe with Streamline Capital. Very excited today to have our guest, Steven Weinstock, with us. So, Steven, welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having me, Brian. Looking very forward to speaking to your audience.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We had a conversation a couple weeks ago. Very impressed with everything you've done, and excited to jump in. So, Steven, let's start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself.
45 years old.
Okay.
Birthday is this week, so I'll be 1 year older. Married, 7 kids, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Started investing in real estate in 2001. I had a corporate job, bought a single family home about 45 minutes from where I live. Thought I would just buy one and continue the corporate job and, have a nice little 401k in the form of a paid off house. After about 2 months of collecting rent, the numbers started clicking. Bought a second, a third, moved on from 2 units to 4 units. Spent a lot of time doing those types of assets. About 2010-ish, moved on to some larger properties, all in the same area, central New Jersey. Even though I live in New York, New York is a tough market.
Yes, it is.
And I stayed away. I figured a 45-minute drive would be easier, and it was. Moved on to some smaller mixed-use projects. Retail, commercial. About 6-7 years ago, started buying some multifamily out of state, and we can get into that and how I got into that. I started with the Cleveland suburbs, still own some buildings over there, and also focusing on Louisville, Kentucky, own some properties there. We're multifamily owners. We raise money from outside investors. We are the general partners. We find the deals, we take care of the deals, and we self-manage our properties as well.
Nice. Let's dive in. I mean, there's lots of goodness there. Like you, I started with a single family home, and a year later, I'm like, I want to do this again. And I was a crazy guy that bought it the peak 2007, but 2008, I was back at it and like, all right, I want another one. But let's talk about that scale. You started with single family homes, which is fairly accessible for the average person. But let's talk about going from single family to multi, and from small multi to larger multi. What was like your decision-making process, and what really pushed you that direction?
So when I purchased the single family homes, it was more of a one-man operation. I was everything. I was using my own down payment. Back then, the banks were a lot more generous.
When did you start, by the way?
I started buying in 2001. So
pre-crash. Oh my gosh, it was awesome.
Yes. So purchased the house. It was $32,000. It was a 3-bedroom house. It had a tenant in there that was paying $900, 10% down mortgage, and rock and rolling since then.
Awesome. Yeah. My first one, I remember about a $200,000 house with 3% down, and so talk about, financing being a lot easier.
Sure.
Yeah.
Bought some other properties. A similar story, 10% down, sometimes 5% down. Learned a lot about seller financing. I used a lot of seller financing to purchase properties in the beginning.
Nice.
I used to ask, one of my first questions always, and still to this day actually, is how long does the owner own the property? This would, give me an answer as to what kind of equity they have, what kind of deal could be structured. And it would be a numbers game, lots of property for sale. Ask about the owners, get that data, and then usually I'd make 2 offers, asking price with seller financing, and then maybe a lowball offer without it. And I was able to get a lot of deals with seller financing, and it's been a very big help in my portfolio.
And I'm just curious, over the years, I'm assuming there's some years where seller financing was easier to get than others. Where do you think we are right now on seller financing? Are you seeing that more frequently now, or is that not happening as much?
Just to give you an example, I've had seller financing come in on some of my larger multifamilies. And so it's not just, pre-2008. You could have a seller selling a $9 million property that's going to hold $1 million in the deal. And that helps out with the capital raise. Sometimes they're, a straight up interest payment. Sometimes they take a piece of equity, but if they don't take the equity, that extra equity goes to me. So it's just an extra tool in my arsenal to purchase property.
Yeah, I love the idea of two offers. I haven't done it on everything, but I have done it on a couple of things. Offer number one, the way I look at it is, we're going to give the vanilla offer. We're going to go out, we're going to get debt. And then the way I set it up when I do two offers is the second offer will have some sort of seller financing. I love what you said. You always ask how long they own the property. If they have a little bit of equity, you might get a little bit of a carry or them to leave equity in it. If they have a lot of equity, they might just, finance the entire thing for you. But the way I look at it is, vanilla offer, and then I'm going to ask them to I'll give them a higher than market price for lower than market concessions on some part. Maybe they carry a little bit of pref equity, but I'm going to give them a lot lower returns than normal pref equity we give. But that's the way I attack it is, give them a little bit higher price, give them something they want in return for something that makes it a lot easier for me.
Correct. I would come across property where, the seller owned it for 2 years, and
Mhm.
that told me, obviously, seller financing is probably not an option. But it also told me, and I guess I learned this later on, it told me that buying a property off somebody or a group that owns it for a year or two typically means I need to be more talented
Mhm.
to make money on the property. And it's not to say that it can't be done, and I've done it, and it's there. But when you find a building or a house owned by somebody for 12 or 18 years, it just leaves a lot of meat on the bone in the form of perhaps aggressive management, some updates, upgrades, deferred maintenance, etc., as opposed to somebody who came in 2 years ago at a pretty high price point
Yeah.
and trying to make a profit off my purchase. I really have to figure out how to skin the cat and make some money on that.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I love the idea of seller financing, two offers. I think it gets them to take a second look, and it makes things just a little bit easier. Hey, would you rather A or B? So getting into multifamily, what were the larger multifamily? What were some of the challenges you experienced with larger multifamily that weren't there, in the single family space?
The biggest challenges I had when I first, delved into the larger properties was learning how to go from being like a solo operator, an owner operator, somebody who takes care of everything, to finding the right partners to handle different aspects of the business. It's a larger purchase. You're buying, sometimes you're buying a business, so to speak, when you're buying a large property. And
Yep.
there's just different parts that, different people play better to, whether it's a partner that I'm totally involved with, whether it's a one off partner in the deal, just has more moving parts.
Yeah.
And so that was a challenge. It was something I knew going in. I was involved as an LP investor into quite a few deals
Mhm.
before I went into my first purchase. And when I went into these deals as an LP, a limited partner, the main reason I went into the deal, obviously, yes, to make money, but it
Yep.
was really to see how this operator or that operator worked. And
Mhm.
if I wanted to invest a large amount of money, I'd literally split it into as many deals as possible,
Yeah.
just so I could see the communication, the feedback. If I have a question, who's responsive, who's not, and it really opened up a lot of eyes. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it gave me like a direct access to a large operator, because here I am, perhaps just a small, and this guy raised 12 million on a deal. I'm putting in a few $1,000s, but yet I get to talk to this guy. He gets to act nice to me. He takes my call. Perhaps, he thinks I'm coming in for a second or a third deal. I get treated a little better. And, if I have questions, not even about the property, just something else, or about an area or a legal question, these guys are great. I mean, it's better than a Harvard education.
Yeah, I've invested as an LP on only two properties where I was not a GP in, and both of them were for the similar reasons. I want the relationship. I want to learn from somebody else. And obviously, I was making sure that, doing the best I can to make sure that my money was going to make money along the way. But from an investor standpoint, I'm looking to grow and scale. And so, yeah, I invested $100,000 2 years ago with, a group that has 6,000 assets. And now I have direct access. I don't try to abuse it, but yeah, it works wonderfully actually. But
My original reason for doing it was for the communication and see how they do their paperwork. but the access that I got, and I guess I realized later on, and
Mhm.
valuable, very valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. That's more valuable than the money that you invest in a lot of cases. So,
Correct, correct.
so cool. So good. So building the team is your big lesson learned, the big difference between a single family and multifamily. But let's see how it progressed from there. I know you mentioned you're active in several different areas and several different aspects. So when you started doing like the larger multifamily, how did that start and where have you gone with that?
Okay, so we did a deal here in New Jersey. So this was still local. It was a little larger than I was used to. And I ended up, over the years, and I'm sure you've been through this, you have a lot of people who just always ask you about real estate. Real estate, everybody loves real estate. They could be a doctor, they could be a plumber. They just love real estate. They always want to talk about it. They have
Mhm.
questions about it. Can I get in? So over the years, I just had just like a Rolodex of family, friends of friends that have called me, asked me questions, over the years.
Mhm.
I came across this property that I knew I wanted. I'm buying it from the bank direct, and I needed to raise some money for this. And, I made a few phone calls from all these people in my Rolodex, and
Mhm.
I was able to raise the money pretty seamlessly. Purchased the property, everything worked out great, etc. I decided I wanted to buy, some multifamily. I was looking at different
Mhm.
locations. A deal came across in the Cleveland suburbs, Cleveland, Ohio.
Yep.
And it's an area I knew pretty well because I went to high school there. I
Mhm.
spent quite a few years there. And when I saw the address, I knew where it was.
Mhm.
I knew the area. I wasn't afraid to go there at night. It was a
Yep.
good area. I knew people from the community, etc., who lived there. So I took a drive out there, took a look at the building, loved it, saw a lot of potential. And one of my big reasons for going in was I knew I was going to self-manage the building. Now,
Mhm.
self-manage means, not a third party. Obviously, I'm not the guy who they call when the toilet is stuffed at 2
Yeah.
a.m. But, as far as the bank is concerned, I was self-managing. Working on the property were working for me directly, and, purchased this building. Things worked out, purchased some more in the same area.
Nice, nice. Lot to go on there. So did the prospect of buying something much larger and raising money, I mean, was that scary for you at first, or was that just something you were used to doing from other things? I mean, you said you picked up the phone and started calling your Rolodex. I mean, how was that for you? Yeah.
So it was a little I don't want to say tough. It was more tough for me as opposed to the feedback I was getting. I had to
Mhm.
refine the way I spoke, the way I sold the idea of the real estate investment. That obviously takes time, it takes practice, and
Mhm.
the only way to do it is with doing it constantly. But it wasn't a large raise,
Mhm.
comparatively, and I was able to go to mom and pop type of investors,
Mhm.
25,000 here, 100,000 there. And, I was looking to really expand my black book of investors. So, if one guy wanted to give 100 and I only had, some left, I would ask him, oh, could I bring somebody else in and you come down a little? I wanted as many people involved as possible. Maybe it's a lesson learned later on, but, I wanted a large black book of
Yeah.
people that would be getting, whether it's quarterly updates, quarterly payments, as many positive transactions that I could
Mhm.
give these investors, I figured would pay dividends,
Yeah.
and they have,
Yeah.
they with referrals, and when I'm
Mhm.
ready for the next deal, if they're happy but they don't have money, they refer me to two of their friends or their brother-in-laws, etc.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was able to grow it from there.
Awesome. That's something that I see over and over again. I mean, something you said, about lots and lots and lots of people. I go back and forth. Would I rather have, 100 people put in 50 to $100,000 each, or one person write a $10 million check? I don't know. They both come with complications. Is the answer.
I do like the multiple smaller investments, but mostly because it's a numbers game.
Yep.
And one small investor might bring you a large investor later on, and as many positive transactions
Yeah.
is my goal. And just getting the quarterly preferred payment, is a positive transaction.
Yeah.
They tell their friends, they tell their wife. It
Mhm.
becomes, it's nice to be associated with all these positive transactions.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. And I mean, one of my favorite quotes of all time is a Zig Ziglar quote. It says, you can and I'm paraphrasing. I don't know if this is exactly how it came out of his mouth, but he says you can get anything you want in this world if you help enough other people get what they want, and so, from that perspective, you keep on having these positive transactions with people. Eventually, more and more good things are going to happen. Eventually, things start snowballing, for you. So, yeah, that's how it should work. That's how it should
Yes,
work.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So that's Cleveland. I'm still active there.
Mhm.
About I don't know, about 4 or 5 years ago, I purchased some property in Louisville, Kentucky. The way I got there was I had a business relationship,
Mhm.
basically a hard money lender, but more of, not a fund, more of just a private guy who would take, first position liens on some of the smaller properties I bought in New Jersey. And he was a large real estate player. He owned a lot of stuff in New York and Manhattan. And about 18 years ago, he
Mhm.
bought, just tons of stuff in Louisville and other areas and skyscrapers, etc.
Mhm.
And I got to pick his brain, being friendly with him and having a business relationship with him. I even went down with him a few times. And that was another area that I wanted to look into. Louisville is a great market. It's
Mhm.
a lot of workforce housing, tremendous. If you ever notice, maybe not now, but used to be every Amazon package you get used to come from Kentucky. And that's because it's essentially located within 2 hour flight from
Mhm.
Maine to Florida to Wisconsin and Texas, which is about
Yeah.
60% of the population.
And the bulk of the population is out to the east. So,
Correct. Yeah.
yeah, you do that with one in like Nevada, and you've got the whole nation covered. But,
Correct. So it just has a lot of jobs, a lot of factories.
mhm.
Ford has quite a few factories here, a lot of logistics and trucking, and smaller companies that feed off of that. So tremendous B class, C class tenant pool. Good jobs, steady jobs. Yeah. So we're in that area. We love it. And again, I self manage these properties, so I'm flying down to Kentucky twice a month. I'm going to Cleveland once every 3 or 4 weeks. But yeah, I'm definitely I'm boots on the ground. I'm there a lot. It's my business. I have to be there. I can't just wait for reports or a third party report that might come at the end of the month. I'm
Mhm.
intimately involved with the management. It does take up my time. I'm not going to say it doesn't. These are hours that are valuable, and I do spend a lot of hours in my office dealing with management, the management aspect. But when it comes to C class or B minus, I find it more cost effective to
Mhm.
self manage. I think the cost controls with these types of assets, having a third party is very tough. Third party management with an A plus, an A class property, I think works great. Dealing with doctors and lawyers, dealing with a new build. For the most part, water heaters and stuff like that is not being replaced every month. Not too much drama with tenants. A class, third party, definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
B class, 70s vintage type of stuff where there's a lot of repairs, a lot of
Mhm.
patch to control it, to control the costs. If I'm involved, I can control it. If it's a third party, it's, oh, let's just get a new roof. Let's just get a new
Yeah.
furnace. Everything brand new, brand new, brand new. It's easier for them. And it's a tightrope. Is that the right, between, am I right for managing it and spending my time doing it? I guess we'll
Yeah.
see.
I think tightrope works. I always call it a balancing act.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
you need to keep the property maintained, well enough. But do you always have to replace something with brand new, or can you repair? It's a balancing act on the expenses. You need to put money into the property, but you can't go overboard on certain things. But yeah, I like the tightrope idea. Yeah, I've always said balancing act. You want to do some of this, but you can't go so far that you're doing that.
When we underwrite a property and we see the expenses that the seller has, and a lot of it is, just service calls from different plumbers and different maintenance guys, there's a lot of cost involved that they're paying that I know that when I take over, it's not going to be either I'll have a full-time employee that could plunge the toilet at 2 a.m. and not charge me a $200 a service call. But yeah, it's definitely a way to reduce the costs, and we know about it going in. We like to buy it off, a third party, somebody who's managing with a third party, seeing their expenses, and knowing that we could, up the NOI with removing some of that.
Yep, absolutely. Awesome. Awesome. I don't self-manage yet, but I will say that you definitely have to make sure that you're on top of the property managers. Otherwise, bad things happen. If you just hand the keys over to the property manager and say, go, you never know how it's going to turn out. So, well, we are about running out of time. So a couple more questions to wrap things up. First one, what's next for you?
Next for me. Okay. So my company, We Capital, still actively buying in the Cleveland suburbs, Louisville, Kentucky. Don't have anything under contract just yet. We did have something that fell through, unfortunately. As of now, we're just managing what we have, still looking for other opportunities, but we're full force ahead, not waiting for Jerome Powell to give me the go ahead or not. I've purchased property in 07, 08, 09, just about every year. And if there's a deal to be had with the environment, it's a deal to be had.
Yeah. I don't have as long of a track record or of a streak, but 2019 through 23, and we'll definitely get one in 24. That's for sure. But yeah, it's nice. I love the attitude. I'm not waiting for Jerome Powell, to tell me it's a good time to invest. I'm gonna go find a good deal. So, well, awesome. Well, next question, and that's, what advice would you give to somebody who is just starting out in the multifamily business?
I always think about this with myself. Did I waste all my years buying single families? Sometimes I say yes, but for the most part, I say no, because without the single families, I wouldn't have been able to scale up. And unless I could really go in there, or if someone's just starting out, unless you could find a good team where you could add value, whether it's raising some money, managing some property, or just other aspects, whether it's underwriting, I definitely get involved and buy. Don't the analysis paralysis that goes on. I've seen it firsthand with lots of people, and it's always the best time to buy is yesterday. The second best time is right now or tomorrow. Definitely buy. Don't hold back. And while today I wouldn't buy a single family home, I'm not going to say you shouldn't. They're hypothetical. Buy something. Get in the game. Again, when I purchased my first, my goal was to continue my corporate job and literally collect rent for 360 months until the thing was paid off, and have like an extra padded retirement. And it's only once I was in it that I have the numbers turn, and the mindset changes, and it really changes. So just get in. If you're already an owner of smaller properties, find a deal, and then everything else will sort of come together. I know that's a cliche. But cliches, why do we say cliches? I guess they are usually
true.
Right.
They usually are. Yeah. And I mean, when you talk about that, buy a single family home first, do you have to buy a single family before you buy a multifamily? No. But looking back at what I've done, I don't think I would have been able to grow into that multifamily, the mindset I needed to buy multifamily without single family first. I wasn't from a family where owning real estate was a thing, so I had to go through that single family process, before I could convince myself that multifamily was even a possibility. So
it's an education, and hopefully a profitable one, buying single families and smaller properties. It's a great education. And it really gets you to the next level. Sometimes you have corporate guys who work for large real estate companies, and they go off on their own to buy multifamily, but they're coming from a different point, different place. But I'm guessing most here are, if you're starting out, you're not real estate affiliated, and buying that house a few blocks away from where you live is attainable, and will really really change your mindset.
Yeah, I love it. Don't wait to start. Just start. All right. Now, last question. And how can listeners learn more about you?
Oh, okay. So Steven Weinstock is my name, based out of Brooklyn, New York. Website is wecapitalx.com, WECAPITALX.com. I'm active on LinkedIn. You can always reach me there. Email is Steven, STEVEN, @wecapitalx. I do have Instagram. I don't really use it. I know all my kids are telling me that's where the next level is. But I guess eventually, I do have the account. I haven't really posted there, but LinkedIn, I'm active. So and I mean,
it's like me and Facebook. I've got Facebook, but don't expect to send me a message on Facebook and have me answer this month, but
Right.
yeah, LinkedIn's where it's at. So,
Yeah.
well, anyway, Steven, I very much appreciate your time today. Thanks for coming on the show and sharing your story.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Brian. Until the next time.